Dzień dobry. Thank you for inviting me. And I changed the title of the presentation slightly because, of course, I would like to convince you to concentrate on our efforts in one place and join MANRS, which stands for Mutually Agreed Norms for Routing Security, but has this interplay. It's like, do you guys have good manners? But I would like to start with discussing the problem first. Do we care? Do we see this as a problem? Then talk about MANRS itself, this initiative that started 3 years ago. And I was with this initiative from the beginning, so I see how it developed. And then I would like to end the presentation with a sort of interactive poll. So if you have your mobile devices or laptops, that would be helpful so we can answer some questions. And we'll see the questions on the screen so we can see sort of interactively those answers. So we know about these problems. I mean, there was a presentation, excellent presentation by Doug Madary from Oracle, who talked about specific routing incidents. And we know they have huge impact and they happen. But when we talk about routing security, we talk about routing security in terms of those incidents. Like, well, this happened and look what happened then. But do we have an idea? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? How does it develop over time? So I think that question is very important because maybe it's just one incident a year, maybe two, maybe three, and maybe it's getting better and better, and we shouldn't care too much. But I pulled some data from service BGP Stream. Do you guys know BGP Stream? Okay. I pulled some data for 3 months, and you see there is a lot of stuff happening in the routing system. And those are just incidents. Those are hijacks and route leaks. Some of them, well, we never know the intent, right? So some of them may be false positives, but I think majority of them are real incidents that took part. So I pulled the data for 2017, again from BGP Stream, and analyzed that. And what I figured out that in 2017 alone, there were 14,000 incidents, which are outages, route leaks, and hijacks happening. Now, there are some caveats. As I said, there might be false positives, right? But BGP Stream and BGP Mon is a service for network operators. So they try to sort of create these heuristics to minimize false positives. So I believe maybe even on the lower side, this 14,000. Another thing is that there's some country level attribution, like well, those incidents occurred to a network in that country. So this country attribution is based on geolocation, and it's not always correct. So there's some caveats. It's not pure research, but I think it gives us some picture. And also what I want to do, I will show you some data about 2017 and also compare with 5 months of 2018 that I did, just to see how this develops, what's the dynamics. So routing system is consistently under attack. So as I said, 14,000 incidents in 2017. 40% of them were security incidents, route leaks and route hijacks. And I'm saying route leaks and route hijacks, you guys know, right, what it means and what the difference is. Great. So over 10% of autonomous systems were affected. So now we have about 63,000 advertised ISNs on the internet, so about 6,000 networks were affected. 3,000 were a victim, right? So maybe their prefix were hijacked or the prefix was leaked, so their operations were impacted. And 1,500 networks were culprit. They caused at least one incident in 2017. So quite big numbers, I would say. And if we compare how it developed, first 5 months were quite bright compared to that. It's only 500 networks that we implicated in 1,500 incidents. Well, you know, you never know. It's not like, it's like weather, you know, you have first 3 months great weather and then the rain starts. So maybe we'll see a rain coming, and I didn't calculate sort of this month, the rest of the year, but I will do the calculation end of 2018 so we can compare year to year and see if we did better in 2018 as well. But, so let's look at the sort of this graph, potential victims. So as I said, well, we mapped those incidents, the victims of those incidents, to countries, geolocation. So take it with a grain of salt. And maybe this graph in absolute numbers doesn't tell a lot, because, well, countries vary and number of advertised ASNs vary. So what I did on the right graph is I normalized this data by the number of now advertised networks in a particular country, right? So you could see, while United States on the left chart is huge, but they also have a great amount of advertised ASN. So if you normalize this, it's only 4% of their networks were a victim, right? And then the light blue is what we see in 2018. And we see degrees. And of course, the year is not over. Yes, it's less. But if we think, even if it's sort of uniformly distributed, I think it's good hope that the numbers by the end of 2018 will be lower. But you see there's some sort of outliers. India, Bangladesh, Iran, Hong Kong, and China. Well, they have quite a high percentage of victimized networks. So I think they should maybe care more than others about those routing incidents. Culprits. Who are these people? Again, well, this is the left graph is absolute numbers, and, well, okay, big countries probably feature more. But if you normalize this again by a percentage, so you talk about percent of networks in a country that were responsible for at least one incident, there are 3 outliers: Brazil, surprisingly Hong Kong, and then Iran. I think that's it. Yeah, that's Iran. I checked the numbers for Poland, and you guys are doing quite well. I think if you look at the percentage, it's less than 1% of networks that were implicated in security incidents. So you have about 2,000 networks advertised, and only 10, I think, networks were implicated. But this is not to say that you shouldn't care, all right? You're doing good, and continue doing that. So positive dynamics, again, the graph of this culprits, routing incidents, 2017 compared to 2018, we see gradual decrease, and some countries that were very bad, like Brazil, you see they are doing much better in 2018. And by the way, they start a security project called Internet Security Project with NICBR, which is their biggest sort of registry and also internet exchange in the country. They are trying to promote security norms, security practices, and maybe that is what it starts paying back. I mean, we don't know, but we'll see. So those are statistics, but in fact, we know, and as I said, there was yesterday a great presentation with specific examples of those incidents. So we know that behind those numbers, there are real incidents, there are real outages, there are real impact, and losses of revenue, privacy, what have you, right? We see that apart from, like this kind of ballistic attacks, like I'm hijacking your space and I'm just dumping this traffic, either by mistake or as a malice, which is a sort of denial of service attack. The more sophisticated attacks, I mean, Doug yesterday, he explained one of the attack where you mount a man-in-the-middle attack by hijacking DNS, right? You're not hijacking the service itself, hijacking DNS, and by doing DNS trick, you redirect a victim to a different website or a different service. Another attack is very popular using routing system is announcing either unused or unallocated space and doing spamming. So spammers, fly-by spammers, they look at this technique. And what is very important is that they use unused space and they pollute the space. So like those IP addresses, they get into all this RBLs, right? They move on and they pollute another space, and then it's very difficult to clean this up. So once you get this address space, it's really dirty. But that's what they are using. Anyway, so do we have tools? Do we have technology to sort this out? Well, yes, we know for decades about prefix highest path filtering. Those are practices well known. There are tools like our tool set, BGP-Q3 that allow you to use various databases and build filters. Even BGP-SAC, which is sort of maybe an unreachable future, is standardized in the IETF. So I think technologies are there, but clearly not enough deployment. If you look how globally those incidents propagate, certainly there are very little defense lines on their way. And the thing is, because BGP is not secure, it's sort of based on trust. I trust what you get. BGP itself cannot validate, right, the announcements. BGP-SAC may well be, but current version we're using is not. So you have to rely on external data, be it Internet Routing Registry, who is database, or RPKI. And this data is inaccurate and incomplete, so you can't really rely. It's not well maintained. And another thing to think about is that when we talk about security in sort of corporate context, we talk about frameworks, right? We talk about like ISO 20000. What it means is that security is not a state, it's a process, right? You can't say, well, I'm secure, job done, move on. No, next day you are not secure, right? So it's a process. It's why people sometimes say, well, why are you not fixing vulnerability? Well, because you can't cherry pick and fix vulnerability. You have to have a patching policy. You have to install all these processes in place. Only that will assure a certain level of security. Now look at the internet. There's 60,000 independent networks. How can you imagine this kind of systemic approach on a global scale of those 60,000 independent networks? That's a real challenge of internet security in general, not only routing. And another thing to think about is that we're really all in this together. We talk about this kind of security practices, but those security practices are not securing your neural network. Put it another way is that security of your network is actually in the hands of other network operators. You remember this famous or classic incident with YouTube when Pakistan Telecom hijacked for 2 hours or maybe slightly more the prefix for YouTube, right? And more than half of the internet actually believed them, and all the traffic went there. So YouTube was under denial of service attack, was unreachable. YouTube could do only so much to protect themselves, right? It's PCCW or Pakistan Telecom themselves should have done something to not allow this announcement to go out to the global internet. That's sort of reciprocity, which is very difficult. It's actually your competitors maybe, or people you have no relationship with are responsible for your security. Think about this. That's a real challenge. Yes, that's exactly it is, right? There's some techniques, right? You can, like, if you're under attack, you will deaggregate, you will announce more specifics. They will announce more specifics, this kind of as path lengths, when different things, but in fact, you're right. That's how it is, right? And if you do these practices, you're actually contributing to overall hygiene of the routing system, but you're not protecting your own network. Well, the same with, denial of service attacks using address spoofing, right? Reflection attacks. You can implement this BCP38 anti-spoofing mechanisms, but they will not protect you from being a victim of denial of service attack. So this business case, so when you come and you say, well, we need to do this, and the answer is, so how does that contribute to our security? No, then probably that doesn't get high priority. But we all sort of, the whole system deteriorates if we follow this sort of trail of thought. So let me now talk about this MANRS, which stands for Mutually Agreed Norms for Routing Security. So why we think it might help? Let me roll back. It started in 2014 by 9 network operators. Internet Society acts as a secretariat, so we're in support, but it's really an industry-driven initiative. Now we have more than 90 network operators, and also we open IXP program that 23 IXPs have joined. I'll talk about this later. So why we think that may help? Well, one thing, because it defines not the best practice. It doesn't say, well, you can do that much to solve this problem, but that's the feeling you get when you read those sort of recommendations. It really defines the minimum baseline. It's the minimum you must do as an operator to be able to participate in the routing system, right? And of course, this is not enforceable, so we want to enforce this as a norm, right? General consensus. And if you think about this again, many things that we rely on in this life are actually norms, not laws, right? They're norms because we believe this is a good thing. But to believe in this, I think we need to draw the line, a very clear line, what is acceptable and what is not. And I think this MANRS is this line. So when I hear people saying, come on, I mean, you're talking about something that we knew ages before, and this is even not solving all the problems in the world. I'm saying yes, because it's a minimum baseline, right? And another thing is, MANRS is not just a recommendation, right? MANRS is a community. So every operator that joins, it forms a community that can reinforce this sense of reciprocity. Right? We visibly see people that contribute to our security, and hopefully that might motivate us as well to join this group, to contribute to the overall security, and a little bit to our own, right? So what's MANRS? It defines 4 actions, and actions, why it's called actions, because in order to join MANRS, you have to implement this. You can't just say, I care, I think routing security is extremely important, please put my logo on this website. No, you have to implement this, and we do the checks. So first of all, it's filtering, but not filtering in general. We're not asking you to filter everything. We ask you to clean your side of the street, which is your own network and your customer code, right? And those things you should care about and you're responsible for, and you should know what your customers are supposed to be announcing, right? Anti-spoofing. Again, anti-spoofing, it's tough game, right? First of all, little business case, and another thing, there are situations where spoofing doesn't work. It can break your customer traffic and stuff like that. So the minimum requirement is, if you have a stop customer, right, single home stop customer, many of those you have, please implement, BCP38 in whatever form, URPF or other static filters. Link to your filtering, by the way. That will protect your border and the rest of the internet from spoof traffic from your customers and your own network. Coordination is very simple. You just be open to coordination. You publish your contacts, and your NOC is responsive. It's actually not dove-num, but it's something that more sensible. And the thing is, this, while it seems like a very simple thing, it is crucial when networks under attack. Being able to reach someone on maybe another side of the globe is crucial, right? So they can help you to mitigate routing attack or denial of service attack. And finally, global validation. This is a shortened title. In fact, if you look at the MANRS document, it explains what it is. It's facilitating global validation. Because why can't we just use RPKI or IR and validate globally? Validate all announcements we are getting, because we don't trust this data, right? I can't, because I will lose connectivity if I start doing this, right? There's a lot of incorrect data, and data is incomplete. So global validation is actually says, I mean, you know your customer code, you know your own announcement, so please encourage your customers, publish this information and maintain this information in those databases and do the same, right? And right now we say, well, there are two sort of, parallel things. There's traditional internet routing registries that we use for that purpose, and there's emerging RPKI. You know RPKI, right? This is emerging technology, which is sort of similar. So we say do both. Yeah, it's a good question. I think I'll talk about this because what we want to do, we want to make the test, the sort of audit, more thorough, right? And we want to do this also every month. So I'll talk about that. You're right. Not everything is sort of not everything is checked thoroughly, and not everything is checked after a member has joined. So maybe when they joined, mail was there, then person left, something happened. So we don't check the validity of email address at the moment. We just check that this information is publicly available in PeeringDB and in registry data. But that would be the next step. Yeah. Good point. Yeah. No, I think it's important that this data is correct. Otherwise, it just undermines the whole purpose. I mean, it's great that you have published email address, but if it's not correct, then it doesn't make any sense. So I take your point. It's a good point, and we're moving there. So MANRS is it's a stepping stone, right? It's an important step. It doesn't provide a whole solution, right? I mean, right now we have 90 operators, right, joined, and 23 IXPs, right? How many networks are out there? 60,000 more. Well, not all 60,000 networks are equal, but 84% of all networks are stub networks that do not make major decisions in the routing, right? They're just, speak BGP, but that's the next tier, those 15% of networks, still a big number, that can make a difference. So if they implement MANRS, I think we're much better off. But still, well, we have to start somewhere. But I think those 90 networks, which also go and talk about those things at different meetings with their colleagues, it actually, I see myself that we start talking about those problems much more open, and we have more attention and more focus on routing security. So there are some benefits I would like to underline. And two main of them, apart from just, heading off routing incidents, right? Because even as I said that your security in some other networks, first of all, MANRS might motivate others to do this. And secondly, even if you do this, you contribute to the overall routing security and therefore to your own. But it also signals security posture of a network. And that's where we want to be. We want to establish MANRS as a trust mark. Because it's very important, right, that your customers, right, know that your level of security, right? But how do they know? There is no signaling mechanism, right? There is no sort of certification right now that you can say, hey, I'm MANRS compliant, right? And if we develop this into this credible trust mark, I think it might have a big impact. Last year, we did a research talking to different enterprises and seeing their views on this project on routing security, and their objectives were very much aligned with what MANRS was solving. And they were even saying, well, we're willing to pay 15% more for MANRS compliant network. I mean, this is just theoretical research, but what it means that if MANRS can be differentiated, for instance, in tender, right? When you participate in tender, you can say, well, we satisfy those routing requirements. And we're working quite hard to actually tell enterprises as well why they should care about routing security and what requirement they should expect from their connectivity provider. One of the things, of course, increasing adoption. Oops, that's very important. So one of the great partners in this game is IXPs. So we brought them on board, and in in April this year, we launched this program. Now it's 23 IXPs, big IXPs are members. And one of the main actions, again, so again, you can't just join and say, I want to help you. I don't know how, but I want. You have to implement the actions. And we went, the team of IXPs actually went off and developed a set of actions specific for IXPs, which relate to routing security. And the first one, very important one, was you have to filter on the route server, right? You have to filter incorrect routing announcements. So all the members of IXP program actually clean up the peering relationship on multilateral peering, of course, on the route server. So look at this. If MANRS cares about this kind of customer-provider relationship, right, and cleans them up, and IXPs clean up peer-to-peer relationship, what's left? Well, I think private peering is left, right? Well, the relationship that are not in the membership are left. But I think we're on the right track. We're actually securing the routing system by doing this stuff. And the rest of the actions are sort of, first of all, promotion actions. So you promote in your community. And third and fourth and five, the technical providing tools, facilitating communication again, and ensuring security of your peering platform. Another thing that we're working on is that, well, one thing is improve on motivation, why you should join. Another thing is to reduce the costs, right? Still for some networks, to implement those actions, it's a big step, right? If I haven't implemented, where do I start? So 2 years ago, an implementation guide was developed. Now it's a RIPE document, by the way, which details how MANRS actions can be implemented. The thing is, we thought it would be one pager with like clear instructions, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 50-page document, and some of the things are far from being like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which says browsing security is hard, but we're getting there again. Another thing is that we're developing, well, we developed a hands-on online modules, so you can go online and take sort of MANRS course, or you can advertise to your clients or someone this course so they can look at this, which illustrates better how you can implement those simple things. And we're working on hands-on lab, and we're working with training organizations so they can incorporate this lab and modules in their training curricula. And finally, what we're working on is what I mentioned to you. We want to strengthen the checks, the audit checks. And we also want to expose how well MANRS members stand with regards to their commitments. So that's what we call member reports. So we want to improve transparency of this effort so other parties, third parties can trust, right, MANRS. They can say, well, it's not just a website. You can actually go and check to what extent those networks commit to those measures, to what extent the level of their security, or what we call MANRS readiness. And because we base this on passive tests, we can actually test this for the whole internet. And that's what we call MANRS Observatory. You can actually check the evolution of the internet. So I showed you in the beginning some of the snapshots, some of the statistics. The idea is to continue to have the long-term data collection and statistical analysis of this data, so we can actually support with facts when we talk about routing security. That's what we call MANRS Observatory. You know what? What I want to do now, I would like you to, if you have a QR scanner, scan this QR code, or just get to this URL. And let me know when, could you raise hands who got to this page? You should see a question with multiple answers. Most of the questions have a single choice answer, right? Guys, have you got it? Yeah? Can I move on? Yeah? Okay. So, oops. So go ahead and please answer this question, the first question. Right. How can I, it's interesting, I can't display, it seems like. Can someone help me from the technical team? Seems I. Oh, maybe I can. I just want to display the yeah. I can. No. It's okay now. Okay. So the questions were: BGP prefix hijacks and route leaks are a serious problem. Oh no. Oh, we went with the next? Okay, well, let's start with the next. So, has your organization been a victim of a routing security incident in the past? Yes, several times a year. Yes, but very infrequently. No, or very rare and not aware. Okay, that's interesting. And, well, we see about 30%, so it's like 30, well, one third in those buckets. That's, I think, interesting thing. Oh, okay. Can we move on? Next question. So, is routing security important to your network? Or in general, do you think routing security is important? But because you, I assume you're network operator, so it's probably related to your network. And well, you saw the MANRS actions, so of course I'm linking this survey to MANRS. So if it's important, do you implement at least this baseline, right? Or maybe more. So that's how you treat. So those who, do I get the answer correct? So those who implement MANRS actions and more, right, and maybe not in those terms, but they not only implement, they actually encourage others, which I assume their peers and their customers, to do the same, right? Is it sort of, I got the answer right? Okay. Okay. Yeah, well, that's well, I'm glad it's zero here, right? So I think we'll realize this is a problem, and either that's a problem of resources, and we have certainly quite a big group of leaders that not only implement, but also encourage people to do the same. So I wonder, now, you might not join MANRS, but have you implemented those things that MANRS advocates for? Meaning, do you filter your customers, right? That's the first action, filtering. Do you do anti-spoofing like URPF or static filters? Do you prevent traffic with spoofed source IP addresses from entering and leaving your network? Is your NOC responsive? Email address doesn't bounce? And do you populate RPKI or IRR with your routing information, what others should expect from you, right? Your prefixes. Come on, guys. Is it GDPR affecting us or what? You don't communicate? Okay, well, that's interesting. That's interesting. So this actually requires that you let others know your like NOC or technical support email address, right? So others, if they have trouble related to your network or need help from your network, they can contact you, or a telephone number for that purpose. But that's interesting. Okay, let's move on. So if you implement those actions, I saw you guys implement. Now for MANRS, to join MANRS, you don't need to implement all of them. You have to implement majority, so 3 or 4. Okay. Is that the answer? Well, I'm happy. So we are waiting for your then sign up requests. Actually, it's very simple to join. So if you go to the MANRS website to join, you have to fill out the form. And please, when you fill out the form, please provide as much information as possible. They're private information that is only used by us and never shared with anyone, and used for evaluation purposes. And they're public information if you want to provide some comments that right now we are not publishing it either, but we may want to, right? We're redesigning our website as well. So please, I should have put not percentages but numbers, but if we have 9 participants, so I expect like seven forms coming our way very, very soon. Thank you, guys. That's very encouraging. Yes, I think that's the last question. So I appreciate your input. Let me switch back to. You can look up the results here, by the way. They are publicly available. So let me go back to my presentation and reiterate, wrap it up. So why to join MANRS? Well, first of all, I think it's important for you as well. It improves your security posture. I think if you implement those actions, you think about security, you implement certain processes, and that helps you as well. You're joining community. There's a mailing list, there's some activities in this community. So I think it's a more trusted community that you might benefit from joining, right? And also you put yourself up as a leader in routing security. I think that's one of the topics that gets more and more attention. And in the future, well, it's already sort of picking up in some context, but you can use MANRS as a competitive differentiator, saying, well, I'm a MANRS compliant network. Right, we did that. So this is a website, right? And this is a video. I hope slides will be available, right, on the website. So please watch this video. It's 2.5 minutes, and it's probably better than my presentation that I did. So it gives you the whole overview. Yeah, and share this. With that, thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer them.